So my mom had a very difficult childhood. She lost her mom at 6 years old, and then her father left. So she
Wow.
was in, yeah, right away it started. She always had stories about her mom and how wonderful she was and how sweet she was, and then her whole life fell apart. And she
Wow.
went to foster care, and she picked cotton from the age of 6 to the age of 25. She worked on a plantation and stuff like that. So I remember watching what is it, The Color Purple
Wow.
and Roots. I remember
Okay.
those movies. And my mom, she would tell me, when you pick cotton, your hands are destroyed. And uh,
So where
and
was
so
this?
I
Where was this,
so
Pierre?
she
Where
was
was she picking cotton?
she was born in Paraguay. So it's
Wow.
very agrarian and it's good weather for farming and everything. And then at 25, she ran away. The police were after her.
Oh,
They
wow.
caught her, and the police says she's 25 years old. Like she's like at 18 she could have left. But she didn't have any means to leave earlier. And finally at 25 she decided to leave, and her foster parents gave her up, and she went to Buenos Aires. Hadn't seen her sisters and her brothers for all that time. Finally, she found her little sister, and they reconnected. Her older sister, she didn't see her again until 50 years later. And I was
Wow.
part of that. When we went to go visit Paraguay, we went to all those old places, and then she showed me everything. So that was my mom's life, and even when she came to Canada as an immigrant, she worked very difficult. She had a very very difficult time of it. I remember once when I was about my son's Robbie's age, maybe younger. Maybe I was 6 years old, or no, I was 4 years old. I remember I was 4 years old. She came home and her legs were completely cut. She had an accident at work. She used to build toasters,
Okay.
stainless steel, and her legs were all cut up. And I remember using cotton to clean her leg, and I was devastated. Here is your mom. You think, and she was suffering, and she was all cut up. Didn't go to the doctor. Had to go to work the next day.
Wow.
So there was a lot of days like that. My mom destroyed herself. She died of cancer in 2017,
Oh my.
but she was always pushing hard, and I am a success because of my mother, and that's why
That
I
is so
wanted to start with
beautiful.
my mom.
I'm
What's that?
curious, what was her, at 25, she ended up in Buenos Aires, and how did she end up in Canada? What was her journey there?
So at 25, she worked for Nestle in Buenos Aires, and she
Okay.
started amassing money. And then she met my father, and they both came in 1967, just in time for the World's Fair in Montreal.
Wow. Oh yeah.
And then and my mom speaks 5 languages. So when she got here, she didn't speak French or English, so she had to
Oh
learn
my
those two
God.
languages.
So what are the five
She
languages?
So the first one is Guarani. Guarani is the native tongue from Paraguay.
Okay.
And Paraguay is the only country in South America, or even all of the Americas, where it's known as the first language, because Paraguay is landlocked. The language was never really colonialized by the Spanish,
Wow. I
Yeah,
never knew
and
that.
so she spoke that, and she spoke Spanish, of course, because Spanish is number two in Paraguay, and then she spoke number three because it was Italian, because her foster parents were Italian. And then she
Wow.
learned English and French in Montreal. And so
Okay.
I always wanted to please my mom. And then you got my dad, and my dad is part of the story as well. My dad was the roughest son of a bitch you'd ever meet. He used to be in the cavalry in Argentina. He was born in Buenos Aires. He was in the cavalry. He had a horse. He had a rifle. He was a mounted rifle. And this is like just after World War One. They still had cavalries in some armies. And my dad later went into the Navy, and of all the jobs that he could have done, he was the shore patrol. So if ever you see The Last Detail with Jack Nicholson, one of his best movies, I really love it. It talks about the sailor who has to like deal with guys who were drunk when they come to shore from being out at sea for like 6 months, right? and uh, and that was my dad. And so my dad was, he said, La Policía Marinera, I think it was. I only found this out after he died because I saw the pictures of him in his uniform. I was like, what? Because my dad and I didn't speak. We had so he used to beat me. He used to the whip that he would use on his horse. I still have. It's upstairs,
Oh my God.
and and he used to whip me with this whip. And for some strange reason, I just can't get rid of it because the whip also has become my dad as a cavalryman. You know, like
Wow.
I tried to make the stories better for my son, for Robbie. But he used to beat me with that whip. And then finally at 17, he would start hitting me with a closed fist, probably from the age of 13 when I started high school. And then at 17, I was taking karate. And he beat me for the last time. I put him in the hospital. And then there was no more fights because he knew he couldn't take me anymore. Now, at the age
That's
of 4, yeah,
You're one of the most gentle
um,
souls I know, Pierre. That's shocking to hear.
I wouldn't wish it on anybody else, you know, and I managed to get out of it in a good way. And as you know, I got my black belt, you know, about a year and a half ago, so I can defend myself. And I guess I needed to defend myself because, like, early on, I was beaten, and so I
Mm.
don't want this to happen again, you know. And I'm
Hmm.
not bitter. I'm not a victim. I'm really strong. I don't fear anybody. I don't care how
Beautiful.
big you are. I just don't fear you. I'm not going to let you have that. If anything, if you do something bad, you should be worried about me, you know, because I'm about justice at this point. When I was
Okay.
4 years old, there was this guy who he was a huge man. His name, funny enough, was Marcel. My dad's name was Marcelo Dussol, and this guy, my dad was, you know, in his little Beetle, and he was going to take this parking spot at Mount Royal. We were going to overlook the city because they were immigrants, you know, and they like to see nice things. And this guy took his spot. My dad was blinking for it. He was patient, and he got out of the car and he says, "You took my spot. You get out now." And the guy laughed at my dad. He got
Uh-oh.
out of the car and he towered over my dad like another 6 inches. And my dad was like 6 foot. And he said something to him, and my dad, his eyes just lit up, wound up, and punched him in the face. The guy dropped like a sack, like a wet sack of cement. And his
My
wife, I
goodness.
remember his wife, "Oh, Marcel, pourquoi t'as fait ça?" Because his name was Marcel too. And the guy just dropped, and he wasn't getting back up. And I saw the whole thing at 4 years old,
Wow.
thinking, "Oh my God," you know. And then my dad says, "Let's get in the car and get out of here before the shore patrol shows up, right?"
When did you catch the theater bug? When did you start getting interested in theater?
So I did very bad in high school. I tried. My mom got me tutors. I just wasn't hitting. I barely got my grade 10 math. I had to take summer school and tutors to get that. And so when I went to Abbott, you know, I had to look at the column and I see, oh, it's you know, I got the only thing that doesn't need a prerequisite. And I looked at the column the other way. Oh, it's theater. I'll do that. And I went to John Rennie High School. So I had Miss Chalmers. I had Miss Chalmers when she
Oh
was
wow,
young. She was
the
like
famous
a
Louise
new
Chalmers.
teacher. Yes, and I had her for every grade in high school, and I did well. I wrote my own scripts with my friends. I loved theater. I could have easily gone into acting, but my mom was so disappointed when she found out, and I said, well, and then at that point it was like, well, I'm not going to go into acting. I'm going to go into technical, so at least I'll learn a craft, right? Because it was too
Yeah.
much for my mom that I was doing that, and she was bitter about it for quite some time. But after I graduated and got jobs, she was proud of me. And then so I started in '87. I graduated in '91. I graduated with Pam Montgomery, who's we have an award named after her.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and the teachers were wonderful. Derek Golder was like a second father to me. I remember having a
Nice.
huge fight with my dad. That time when I had the last fight with my dad, I was with Derek Golder and Chris Brown, two big figures in my life, and Rod Hayward as well.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, and so Derek became like this foster father, and then I got a love of British history, talking to Maggie and Chris Brown, and then
Wow.
as soon as I graduated, I got a degree in history, and I focused in British history. So I went to Concordia. I graduated in 1998. I finished my archaeology degree. I got into archaeology as well at the University of Warwick in
Wow.
England. And I had, I still have a love for everything British. I consider myself an Anglophile.
Okay.
And it's funny, Abbott, Douglas Brown, who's a dean there now, was one of my best teachers, and he taught me how to write an essay. And it was because of him that I thought maybe I can do a degree in Concordia. Fast forward, I worked with Chris Brown for many years. 25 years I built sets with him. He hired me in 1987, my first year. We built 42nd Street, I think it was, at the Shar Hashemayim,
Oh,
and then we did
nice.
Hudson shows, and we did all kinds of other synagogues, and
Did you use a lot of
oh
JC Olivier? Did you use JC paintings for a lot of those sets?
no, because Chris Brown
No.
would design the sets. So
Okay.
the J.C. Olivier drops would mostly be at Abbott for Peggy's classes,
Okay.
ALC in the old days, right? Beautiful drops, and so then. I graduated and I kept working for Chris, and then I worked at the Centaur. I was assistant head carpenter, then head carpenter. Then I went to Nova Scotia for 3 years. I worked with Steve Sean, Michael
Oh,
Fuller.
nice.
Yeah, and I loved my
Such a
time in Nova
small
Scotia.
business.
Oh,
Such a
it
small
is.
community. I love
And
Steve Sean.
yeah, oh, Steve Sean is like he's like my older brother. He is
Wow.
he calls himself the greatest technician in Canada, the best technical director in Canada, you know. And at first I laughed, but then like working with him, like unbelievable what he comes up with. I
Yeah.
remember one day we needed a fog machine, so he made one from scratch from parts at the junkyard. Oh, there's too many
Oh
Steve
my
Sean
God.
stories for this interview.
Great lighting designer
So
too.
yeah, yeah, everything he touches turns to gold, you know,
Nice.
and the energy that he has, it's just, it's infectious.
You
And
worked
Joanne
you worked in the
Pomeranski,
film
his wife.
industry. You worked in the
Yeah,
film industry here as well, eh?
yeah. So I started off, I think my first movie was Mothers and Daughters with Larry Kent and Chris Brown and Maggie. And then I met up with Patra Jacques, who's a faculty member now and an
Oh yes.
ex-graduate. And Patras and I became good friends. I just got a text from him, a week ago saying how much he's going to miss me and I'm going to miss him. Um, so
Ah,
he always worked in props, and in 2000 we started working on Battlefield Earth. It was one of the best times I've ever had. Hard work. I got injured, almost cut my thumb off, and we were exhausted all the time. And then Patras and I kept making, like props and guns and all kinds of stuff for, I met John Travolta, I met some of the Baldwin brothers. There's people on set that you say, oh, and just recently Elvis Gratton left. And I remember meeting him. I went one day. They were working on the beer that he wears on his back when he goes to the beach because he's Canadian. He's going to drink a lot of beer, right? I love it. And so they were doing the beer for him, and he came in I think Patrick says, oh, wait till you see Elvis is coming. That's Elvis Gratton. C'était un plaisir. He goes, hey Pierre, c'était vraiment un plaisir de faire ta connaissance, hein? I mean, it's always it's always a great, yeah. So film is was always one of my big loves, and then I got John Abbott. I started at John Abbott College in 2003, and it wasn't clear that I was going to get the job. And then the students wrote the dean and said what a great job they thought that I did, and that they wanted me to continue for the second semester.
beautiful.
And I met
That's
so
beautiful.
many, yeah, there's so many students that have become my closest friends now, and I'm proud of them. Some of them have, and if you're a good teacher, you want your students to be better than you, and I want that,
Sure.
because they have it good. They don't know how good they have it. They come to a great CEGEP. Compare us to the rest of the world. We have the great CEGEP system, and it's accessible to everybody, and it opens doors, and our universities aren't that expensive. And so, this is a great. It's always considered John Abbott a good launching pad. And I play a lot of roles. I play the role as a teacher, a mentor, in some cases almost like a dad, like Derek Golder was to me. And I'll take, maybe the drunk uncle. I don't mind being the drunk uncle. Anything, anything that works. Because when you're in my class, I always like to say, we're here to learn stuff, but at the same time, we're here to celebrate life.
Nice.
It's part of the journey. It could be a bit boring sometimes, but we are all individuals. We're coming together and we're doing extraordinary things. I always say we're doing extraordinary things because we are. We're doing magic on a stage. We're pretending to be another place or another time.
What are you gonna
Uh,
miss? What are you gonna miss about the job?
um, I'll tell you something I'm going to miss. The other day, Rob, you don't know this, but I drove up. You parked in front of me, and I parked my car, and I saw you get out of your car, and then from the other side, I saw your son come out. And
Oh,
I said, "Oh my God," because Robbie talks about, being his teacher one day at Abbott if it all happens, and my God, the feeling it must be of having your son go with you to work, and then maybe having lunch with him during his break or something. And I saw you and your son. You got a great son. We're
thank you.
both lucky. We got two good marriages, we got two good kids, and we have great jobs. And so that's what I'm going to miss is not being able to be my son's a teacher, but I'm going to miss meeting all these every semester, like even the trouble kids. Even the trouble kids get something. And we've had a lot of trouble kids, and they managed to finish that course, and that was the first little hurdle in life. And then there's another hurdle. You don't know about it, but you know that they might be able to finish the race, continue in the race because they did the first hurdle. So yeah, that's what I'm going to miss. I'm going to miss being
Beautiful.
the students and making a positive impact. I'm also a scout leader. My son's in
Yeah.
scouts with me. And I see that age. I'm starting to get closer and closer to the sage up age kids, and yeah, I'm going to miss that contact.
Circling back to your mom, how many languages do you speak, Pierre?
Oh my God! Unfortunately, I only speak three. I speak
And
Spanish,
only.
French, yeah, Spanish, French, and English. And my wife
Yeah.
speaks Italian fluently, and so I understand Italian. I can kind of speak it. I maybe I could say three and a half at this point.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions to finish things off here.
Yeah.
If you can go back to your 21-year-old self, is there anything that any advice that you'd give yourself?
Buy Tesla.
Which you have, by the way.
Yeah, I did, and that's part of the reason why I can retire. It's so hard to retire at this age, and unless you
Yeah.
have a plan. Having a kid and having everything that you want in life, it's hard to save money. 20 years old. So if I, there's so there was a point where I wanted to get into the RCMP, and that was because it was because my dad revered everything British, and I don't know why I tried to please my dad so much. He was bad to me sometimes, but it's just like I've forgiven him at this point. But I wanted to be in the RCMP. He would have been really proud of me. Finally, I would have ticked that box because my mom, no matter what I did, she was proud of me. And then so either no, but psychology. We took psychology when I did my master's at Abbott. I was lucky enough. That's how I met Maria. We were both doing our masters of psychology, and I really love the psychology classes. And I do things with kids in school, but I mean, if I really wanted to help people, I think as a psychologist, I think that's probably one of the best helps you could do. So maybe it would be that career path.
Right. All right. Okay, a couple
Yeah.
of actor studio questions. What's your favorite word, Pierre?
My favorite word?
Yes.
um, I think I could be Excelsior.
Least favorite word. What's your least favorite word?
I got to tell you why it's Excelsior because it can mean anything to people. Excelsior is actually the stuff that comes off when you're drilling into metal, that the shavings that come off.
Okay.
It's kind of like something that you discard, but it's a beautiful thing that you're making. You know? So it's like even the discarded thing is a beautiful thing, and so I think Excelsior.
It's a
My
great
least
word.
favorite word, yeah, yeah. And my least favorite word, um, I can't think of one. What
Okay,
does
next
that say?
question. What turns you on emotionally or spiritually? What excites you?
Uh, what turns me on spiritually? My mother was a Jehovah Witness, and I had to dump that, and that was a big thing that I couldn't please her with that, and she was very disappointed. And my wife being a scientist, I became an atheist, and that was even harder for my mom to accept. But so spiritually, I think that we need to make heaven on earth now. I don't believe in the afterlife, and if you believe in the afterlife, I envy you. I wish I could. So maybe my outlook on life would be even better. But I need to make heaven on earth now with any contact that I
Beautiful,
make with people. You know,
beautiful. What turns you off?
people who these days it's people who will shut down the discussion. People who want to silence. There's a lot of it in the world today.
What sound or noise? What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, I love the sound of flowing water, like from a
Okay.
waterfall. I
Yeah,
like to sit in the front yard in the spring, and I have a little fountain that makes that bubbling brook kind of sound, and
beautiful,
it just puts me at peace, you know?
beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah,
Last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear at the pearly gates when you arrive?
I've thought about this a lot. The first thing I'd like to hear is my dog whimpering, seeing me from far away
Mhm.
and running to me.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice. I love it.
yeah, yeah.
All
His name
right,
was
let's
Windsor,
make.
and he was a great dog. Yeah,
Yeah, God, yes, I learned so much about you. It's beautiful, Pierre. I'm going to cut this thing
yeah.
short. Happy retirement. So let me just see if I'm going to
Thank you.
close this.